That's right. This is not so much geometry as it also is like logical statements. They're if-then statements. Have you ever heard of an if-then statements?
If blah blah blah, then blah blah.
Good. If blah blah blah, then blah blah blah. I like that. So, can you give me an example of one that you can think of?
If you sleep, then you can be rested.
Okay. If you sleep, then you are rested. I like that. That's an if-then statement, right? Sometimes we just call those things statements. Yep, I swear. And sometimes we just call those things conditionals. All right? They're conditionals. So you might hear me say, okay, the statement says this, or the conditional says this. But really, I'm talking about the same thing each time. Okay? So let me give you an example of one, and this is the way that I do it. I always do if, and then I underline it. And I say, today is Tuesday, then, and I underline that one, tomorrow is what? Okay, this is a if-then statement. It's also sometimes called a statement. It's also sometimes called a conditional. Okay? Let me give you another one. If, same box here, I am your geometry teacher, then my name is Joe. And that's true. Okay? There you go. Now you guys know something. That's right. Thanks. All right. So if-then statements. So did you notice that there's actually two parts to these if-then statements? Right? Do you guys realize that? There is there's the if part, and then there's some stuff after the if. Right? You guys see that? There's the this part, if part, and then there is the then part, and then there's some stuff after the then. All right. Well, these have specific names. Okay. The stuff after the if part, that is called the hypothesis. All right? So this part is called the hypothesis. So I put a little h here, and I circle that. The if part is the hypothesis. So what does that make of the then part? You got any guesses? The conclusion. All right. So the if part is the hypothesis, the then part is the conclusion. So I put a little C over here. So I go if H, then C. Okay? Does that make sense so far? Have you heard it? Okay. So let's go back to that example that you gave us. If, what did you say? If I get rest, then I'm rested? Or if I get takes, what did it say? If I go to sleep, then I'm rested. What's the hypothesis? If you sleep. Good. What's the conclusion? Then you're rested. Very good. Awesome. You know what's so cool about this stuff is that it's used so often that there's a shorthand. There's a shorthand way to write it because it's used so often. And what we do is we say this. We say if, and we say P, then we say Q. So P is your hypothesis, and Q is your conclusion. So you're going to say, like, you know, here the whole like P's and Q's statement. So if P, then Q. That's going to be the shorthand that we're going to use. Okay, if P, then Q, this is going to be my statement. Okay, if P, then Q. Whatever statement I have, right? If I'm your geometry teacher, then my name is Joe. That's my statement. All right, that's my general statement. Now, check this out. If I just do this, if Q, then P. What did I just do? Switched them, right? See that? Switched them. This is called the converse to my statement, all right? So if I'm given a statement, if P, then Q, all I got to do to get the converse is to do what? Switch them. That's right. So let's do an example. Same box right here, and I have this one for you. How about this one? If I live in California, then I live in the USA. Okay? That right there is the statement. Right? That's what I'm starting with. That's the statement. Okay? What is the hypothesis to this statement, you guys?
I live in California.
Very good. If I live in California, that's my hypothesis. That's the P part, right? What's the Q part?
I live in the USA.
I live in the USA. That's my conclusion. That's the Q part. That's my conclusion. All right. If I live in California, then I live in the USA. Let me ask you this question. Is that statement right there, is that a true statement or a false statement? That's a true statement. If you live in California, you live in the United States. Okay, right now, write the converse. Okay, how many of you came up with this? If I live in the USA, then I live in California.
It's false.
Okay, all right. Well, first of all, did you come up with the right? Did you come up with the right statement? Okay. This is the correct statement in terms of this is what the converse is. You guys cool with that part? So I have statement, then I have converse. Is the statement, the original statement, is that true?
Yes.
Yeah. So is it cool, you guys? I put a big T here for that's true. You guys agree with that? Now the converse, is that true?
No.
It's conditional. It's sometimes true. So this, all you have to do, in order for a statement to be false, all you have to do is give me one counterexample. So could you give me a counterexample that would make this statement false, which is why I can give it false? Yes. What do you got? No? Okay, what do you got? Yeah.
I live in Alabama.
I live in Alabama. I live in New York. I live in Kentucky. I live in Arizona. Any of those would make the converse false, right? So if I can find one, then the whole thing is false, because all it takes is one. That's why it's much easier to prove something is not true than it actually is, all right? So now, I have the statement, I have the converse, all right? So you have the idea of converse. So is it going to always be the case that the converse is always false? No. Sometimes it will be and sometimes it won't be, all right? That leads us into something that's next. So we were just talking about if-then statements and then the converse. And we just found out that the converse can sometimes be true and sometimes not be true, and we had some examples, right? So here's what a biconditional statement means. When you have a biconditional statement, that means that both, and they have to be both, the statement and its what, you guys? And its converse are what? Whoa, no, are true. Okay? That's what you meant. That's when both the statement and the converse are true. So what we have to do is say this. So we say, if P, then Q. So that's our original statement, and that has to be true. And the converse would be what? If what? If Q, then P, and that is our converse, and that is also true. When both of these things happen, this is called biconditional. I ran out of room right there. That's called biconditional, all right? And if a statement is a biconditional statement, that means it's both its statement and converse are true, then we can write it in shorthand. And the cool shorthand way that we do it, I'll get your question in just a second, is this. P, I, F, F, Q. You're like, what does that mean? Okay? I'm going to tell you what it means right now. IFF, and it doesn't need to be capitalized. I just write in all caps. IFF means if and only if. I'll say that again. IFF means if and only if. So P, if and only if Q. So what that means is, this is the other way that we write it. We can go double arrows. Both of these mean the same thing. Both of these things mean biconditional, and biconditional means that both the statement and the converse are true. Those are the two ways you can write it. So that means the statement is read going forwards true and going backwards true. Both true, no matter which direction you go. So what was the great example? Who gave me what was the really good one?
Bilingual?
Yeah, let's do that one. If I am bilingual, then I speak two languages. If I speak two languages, then I'm bilingual. Notice that whichever direction you choose, statement or converse, it's both true. Does that make sense? You guys with me on that? That's called a biconditional statement, and this is the way that we shorthand write it. So, if and only if. So, I am bilingual if and only if I can speak two languages. If I speak two languages, I am bilingual. I am bilingual. There you go. I got lost for a second. All right, guys. There's my statement. Write the converse. I'm giving you an algebra if-then statement. Write the converse. And then determine, is this a biconditional statement? So either one of those would be how we do it. IFF or the double arrow, both sides. Okay?